Welcome to the rush that is the 700 brake horsepower, 982 kilo Praga Bohema.
This is absolutely wild. Up there with the most extreme road cars I've ever driven. Certainly wilder than anything else I've driven from the Czech Republic.
I mean, the Czechs have only ever built Skodas, right?
What an extraordinary car this is.
If this film checks your box and makes you think about swapping your faithful hatchback for a frivolous hypercar, then why not head over to HagertyMarketplace.com. You can auction for free and keep 100% of the sale price. To find out more, just click on the fancy little link in the handcrafted description down below. Now, we'll get to the specifics of this new $1.5 million road racer in a bit, but first I think we need to take a moment to look at the bigger Praga picture. Not just the fact that the company was founded in 1907, but its very nationality. Because, rightly or wrongly, where a car comes from can often unconsciously help us frame its character.
You say a new Italian supercar and you sort of know what to expect, the same with American, British, German even, but what about the Czech Republic? So, I thought we should have a few facts about the country. It's a landlocked country, bordered by Germany, Austria, Poland and Slovakia. Apparently, mushroom picking is a popular pastime. 70% of the population do it at least once a year. Don't know if this is where you find them. The word robot was first used by a Czech author, Karel Čapek. Beer. They invented Pilsner and they drink more per capita than any other country in the world. 267 pints apparently. Cheers. People born in the Czech Republic include Mendel, father of genetics, composer Dvořák, Franz Kafka, tennis players Lendl and Navratilova, and a certain Ferdinand Porsche.
Today it's a country of about 11 million people, and most of the ones I met certainly seemed to like the Praga, whether it was static or on the move.
The look on people's faces.
It's also a rather beautiful country, even when it's blurring in your peripheral vision.
This view out is just one of the most extraordinary things. It's such a huge part of what makes this car appealing. It's like you've been ingested by an insect and you're controlling it. You're strapped on the exoskeleton of some insectoid robot. If you worry about forgetting what tyres you've got on your car, by the way, then you don't need to worry in this, because every time you pull up to a junction you can just read it off the sideboard.
It's on Michelin Cut 2Rs for the road, but it can also take a set of slicks if you want to turn up to a track, make the most of the Bohemia's 900 kilos of downforce and top some timing sheets. And Praga really knows what it's doing when it comes to racing, because it also makes go-karts. A certain George Russell won a championship in one. Before the Bohemia, it also made the smaller track-only R1, which I drove about 10 years ago. They did a one-off road conversion called the R1R, and the learnings from that informed much of this.
One of the big differences over that R1 is that people definitely wanted a two-seater, a proper two-seater. And also they knew they couldn't bolt the engine to the chassis, just the NVH would be too bad. And although it's loud in here, you can actually hold a conversation. It takes out some of that, well, noise, vibration and harshness that you would definitely get if you just bolted straight to the carbon tub. And there is genuinely room for two people in here. They've designed it so that somebody sitting here, they sort of tuck their elbow back and therefore they don't get in the way of the driver.
The engine in the R1 was a 4-cylinder Renault unit, but for this, they obviously needed something a bit more special. So, nestled in the middle of the car is the R35 Nissan GTR's 3.8 litre twin-turbo V6. However, although they ended up with Japanese power, they nearly had something from just across the border here.
Praga went to all the big German manufacturers, Mercedes, BMW, and the other option in the end for this was the Audi R8 V10. And in some ways what might have been, I mean, that amazing naturally aspirated V10 in this car would be extraordinary. But I do understand why they went for the Nissan. There was more support from Nissan and they were worried about being able to get this through emissions, make it work.
Never before has Nissan let another brand use its GTR engine, and it's not stock either, having been dry-sumped, tuned and re-turboed by UK specialist Ian Litchfield to produce 700 brake horsepower and 553 pounds-feet of torque.
That torque's available all the way from 3,000 to 6,000 RPM, maximum power 6,800 RPM. There's almost a bit of motorbike in there, the sound of the engine.
It's not musical, but the flat, business-like chatter and growl that fills the cabin is very mechanical, very race car. And it's not the first time this company has put something so purposeful on the road.
Because 90 years ago, there was another Praga road racer. This is the Praga Super Piccolo.
In 1934, a quartet of these were built for the 1,000 miles of Czechoslovakia, a road race that Praga had won the year before. After the checkered flag had fallen, however, the Super Piccolos were dismantled and their chassis reused. But Pavel Prohaska managed to find one of these chassis and has spent the last decade rebuilding it from original drawings and photos, using all the same period-correct techniques.
As you can see, this car was pretty wild for 1934. Incredibly aerodynamic. In fact, there was another Czech car, the Tatra 77, which was also meant to be the first serially produced production aerodynamic car. But this is kind of sleeker. It's got a full flat underfloor. You'll see this Perspex roof up here, which is pretty hot on a day like today. It's a bit like sitting in a greenhouse, but it obviously made it lighter up there and lighter in here. It's just everywhere you look, there's detail. The engine is a 1.5 litre 4-cylinder. It's got magnesium block, and there's a magnesium gearbox as well for this little 3-speed gearbox. Helical cut gears are not straight cut.
Nonetheless, a bit of double declutching is advisable and actually rather fun.
Give it some revs, he said. Up into third, top gear.
The engine produces 35 brake horsepower, which is not to be sniffed at, and with its aluminium bodywork and an interior that looks like it comes with a free woodpecker, it weighs considerably less than even the Bohemia.
Pavel has done 130 kilometers an hour in this. And to think that this was designed to race on roads that were a lot worse than these ones today. That's a horn and a half. The lights and the horn are all by Bosch, and it needed a huge horn so that when they were going through villages, hammering through villages on the 1,000-mile race, they could warn all the villages because it was effectively, obviously, open roads.
As you can probably tell, Praga was a really innovative company, and a bit like Honda today, it didn't just stick to cars, with everything from motorbikes to aeroplanes bearing the badge with the rampant lion of Bohemia on it.
So you might be wondering, so why does Praga not produce cars from 1947 onwards? If they made amazing stuff like this, why didn't it continue? Well, Praga's history is really tied up with that of Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic. Obviously, during the Second World War, the factories were co-opted into producing machinery for the war effort. Then after the war, they did actually try and produce some cars again. But the Communist Party came to power, took over the country in 1948, and they looked around and thought, well, we don't need 3 companies producing cars. So Skoda was given the job of producing cars, Tatra produced the heavy trucks, and Praga the light trucks.
It is then a case of what might have been for both Praga and Tatra, but at least now the Super Piccolo does have a successor.
What an endlessly fascinating little car. And it's extraordinary seeing the two together, separated by, let's face it, the best part of a century. Yet there is a clear design bloodline running through them, both of them with their amazingly pointed faces.
Mechanically, it's the gearbox in both cars that probably makes you think more than anything else when driving either one. The modern car has twice the ratios of the old, with a 6-speed Hewland sequential that was chosen because of its performance on track, but also because it saves 70 kilos versus a dual clutch. And that's weight which is right at the back of the car too.
I love the mechanical feeling, the direct feeling of a sequential box, but you do have to accept some compromises with it. Wow, it's fast. One of the things about this engine is that because it's so torquey, and that's where it lives, you feel like you can actually get an awful lot of the performance out of this car in a straight line on the road, because you're not waiting for really high RPMs. It's fabulous traction as well. Little bit of push at the front in these tighter corners, so you can actually sort of push it, just feel it going a bit light, but it means you can work with it. And then really good traction.
The TTX dampers do a great job riding the bumps on the road, yet the only adjustment compared to the track setup is 3 clicks softer on the rebound.
Brakes. You need to get a little bit of heat into the carbon stoppers. They require a bigger push than you might think, given how light the car is. There is feel there, absolutely. You just need to be confident with them. They're so low down. It gives you such a feeling of actual security with the car in terms of how it is. So although it hunts over canvas, you feel so utterly at one with the car. I mean, there are roomier sleeping bags out there.
The electric clutch system is definitely easier than a third pedal, but it still requires thought and a bit of finesse, and a 3-point turn isn't the work of a moment.
Other cars it makes me think of, obviously the Aston Martin Valkyrie, but sort of perhaps more niche, the Caparo T1, the BAC Mono, something of a grown-up aerial atom with bodywork on it. But this has been trimmed so nicely. As much as there's a lot of race car in this, there's also a lot of genuine hypercar detail and beauty in it. I love all the buttons up here, the little screens have done so well. There is nothing of the budget startup here. Everything's been thought of, everything's been really crafted. There's an artistry to so much of this car.
It's not just in the cabin either.
I don't know what it is I find so attractive about springs and dampers like this. They're just wonderful, these Öhlins, and you can see the 2 spring weights here, so a softer one for road and then the firmer one for when it's under real aero load. But the reason for taking the front cover off is to show you the thing that was most complicated to develop on the whole car, the windscreen wipers. Normally on a car like this you'd probably expect to find a single wiper up the centre of the screen like that, which I do like the aesthetics of, but they've kept them out of the way and it is so clean and it's just beautiful, and they work in sequence, not together to clear the screen. It's a marvel.
Yes, I am that person you wouldn't want to be stuck in a lift with, but even if you don't really care about the difficulty of wiping water from a compact curved surface, there is plenty to ogle.
Things like the roof scoop up here, which is just functional but absolutely beautiful. So much of this is down to the chief designer, Juraj Mitro, who actually designs carbon fibre furniture in his spare time. And the little solutions all around this car that have been done not just for practicality but with real aesthetics in mind, because he's an engineer and he's a designer and he knows how to get things made. I think my favourite example is the way this rear deck comes up, because originally they were just going to take it off and they said no, it would be, where do you put it if you take it off? So they designed this mechanism down here sitting either side of the wonderful, beautiful titanium exhaust. I could look at it for hours.
Park it next to a VW Phaeton and you have a rear hinge hall of fame. Still too niche? How about steering wheels?
It took them 3 years to develop this steering wheel, and it is all bespoke. You've obviously got the lovely switchgear here to match the rest of the car. On the back we've got the paddles up and down for the gear shift, and then this folds out rather neatly. That's the hand clutch for certain situations you might need it in race mode as well. But it's really the way you hold it. Initially it might just look like a bit of a flight of fancy, something taken from a Barbara Hepworth sculpture, but it is so comfortable to hold, and it works not just for great big hands like mine, but also small hands as well. This really feels like it moves the steering wheel game on.
Amazingly, it doesn't feel awkwardly thick or chunky to hold like a modern BMW Bagel. It's just really comfortable and helps get the most from the E-Pass.
The experience, even if you're not pushing this car, of just being so low to the ground. This view out is magical. Is this car for everyone? Absolutely not. You have to accept some compromises if you're going to have a road racer. A real road racer.
There is also the not so small matter of £1.2 million.
That is a huge amount of money for a name that you're probably going to have to tell all your friends about every time you see them. What is it again? Praga? Remind me.
With that engine, you'd no doubt get some accusations of it being a Godzilla in a frock as well, but it's not. It has its own history, it has details you won't find anywhere else, it certainly has performance, and with just 89 being produced, it will always have rarity. It's also less than half the price of cars like the Valkyrie and the Ferrari F80. But as a final thought, I actually found myself comparing it to perhaps the ultimate road racer.
Recently, I drove Porsche's road-going Le Mans car, the 963 RSP. Literally a car that raced at Le Mans a week later. And it struck me that this is very like that. Under 1,000 kilos, pretty much the same, slightly less actually. 700 brake horsepower, almost exactly the same, slightly more actually. And this cockpit, every bit as extraordinary.